Lucy Shrimpton is an award-winning entrepreneur, speaker, and writer helping high-performing business owners unlock their next level of growth with a path in life and business that has been anything but traditional. Shaped early on by her mum's belief that anything is possible and the sudden loss of her dad in 1999, Lucy grew up with a very understanding that life was for living. She left her all-girls school at age 14 and spent her early years working as a TV extra, modelling and performing in tribute acts for artists like Girls Aloud. It's not your typical starting point for someone who would go on to build multiple businesses, but it says a lot about how she operates, figures things out by doing rather than following a set path. Her work began in real life. After becoming a mum of two, she experienced intense sleep deprivation, the kind that impacts on everything. That led her to study sleep, behaviour, and well-being and built the Sleep Nanny, which grew from one-to-one support into a global franchise. But what stands out about Lucy is how her work has evolved. Her curiosity has always gone deeper into human behaviour, performance psychology, the nervous system, and how all of that shapes the way we live and work. Today, through Born to be Brilliant, she works with high-performing business owners to understand what it actually means to win without costing their health, relationships, or stability. What makes her work stand out and is different is that she doesn't separate business from person behind it. It looks at the whole picture of how you think, live, and operate. As Lucy says, there are always ways. Just because something is how it's normally done doesn't mean it has to be that way. Lucy, welcome to Stories That Sell.
Oh, Naomi, thank you so much for having me on.
I mean, when I was doing the prep for this interview, honestly, your career and what you've done in life is just absolutely immense. I could literally sit here and ask you about 300 questions, but we don't have time for that today. But I just love that attitude of, I'm just going to get on and do stuff and do what I love. I think that is just such a massive ethos when it comes to being a business owner. What do you think actually was driving that? Following your passion, having that kind of mindset to be able to go, I can just do it.
Hmm. It's a really good question. And it's actually really interesting hearing that back, just hearing you reflect back to me that kind of journey, because you forget when you're in it and you're living it. It's like, oh gosh, yeah, I've done that. And that, yeah, I'm older than I realized. I think I'm still like 25 or something. Um, so yeah, I think the thing I do think there was or is an element of my personality that is tenacious, like very, if you can see it, it can be brought into reality. I think that is just in my core, but I think it was reinforced by things early in life where the seemingly impossible or different or extraordinary, um, good or bad, happened. And so I remember even in my late teens, early 20s, acknowledging the fact that I had already at that point, I could have described my life as having some high highs and low lows and not being mundane by any stretch. So things that would, maybe infuriate or tip somebody over the edge that had never really experienced anything particularly phenomenal or particularly devastating, could be quite a minor thing. And I'd be like, why are they worrying about that? But then I was like, oh, it's all relative because they haven't really got any experience that's comparable. And I remember thinking this like very early on, and I thought, oh yeah, okay, yeah, and never in a woe is me way, but I was like, I can really balance out that some of the really hard, tough stuff I've experienced and some of the really extraordinary, unusual, brilliant things that don't happen to everyone. And I was like, oh, hmm. And I think I just sort of took that on board early on. But with that, there was that reinforcement of, yeah, anything is possible. Sometimes you don't ask for it. And sometimes you go out there and you keep going and say, I'm going to make it happen, even when somebody says no. And I think you do that enough times, and it's not always the right thing either. I do know there's one story of where I was so determined to bring a business to life that despite the fact that I didn't really have a good plan, and the bank didn't want to give me the money for free, but they would with a personal guarantee. So I was like, well, I'm going to do it anyway, with or without your help. I was just really determined, and I did. And it wasn't the best idea in the end. It could have been, but I got bored after 5 seconds, so it wasn't the best idea. But the point being, I saw that I felt like, oh, you can do just by being finding a way. And yeah, so little evidence bits early on, I think just reinforced that within me. Mm.
I really love that. And actually, what's really interesting is the way that you kind of describing the fact that you went to the bank and they still said no. I had a very similar experience. But usually with a lot of people, it's their money mindset that will then go, right, I can't do it then. But actually,
Yeah,
that money wasn't your barrier ever. It didn't seem to be, there was always a solution to find money or do something,
yeah.
which is
I didn't have the
unusual.
money. I was like 23, I think, at this point. I just had a vision. All I had was a vision. I'd found a unit in a shopping centre where I could bring this vision to life. I'd costed that up. I had the vision. I didn't have the money, and this was back when you could, in quite a lot of circumstances, you could get a loan against a limited company, and the limited company is liable. So I was hopeful that, if it all went wrong, I wouldn't be liable because it was a limited company. But the bank was savvy to that, and they were like, "We're not taking a risk here." And when I said, "Oh, okay, fine, it's fine. I'll find it somewhere else," they were like, okay, well, we will give it to you if you personally guarantee it. And I did have a property very young, so I felt like, yeah, I can personally guarantee this. I have got backup. So
Yeah,
yeah, I went
yeah,
for it. But you learn, don't you? I think I went through the school of life, and I think you can't learn this stuff in a classroom. You can't learn this in a business degree. You go out there and do it.
yeah. I'm a big believer in, and I will admit I've taken a lot of exams, particularly in the music world. Like I've done a lot, but I would say you don't need the qualifications to prove that you can do something, and I'm a big believer of that. And I think your ethos very much aligns with that. I
Yeah.
want to touch on like getting into the world of performing at quite like
Yeah.
in a young age because I'm obviously a performer and that really resonates with me. What do you think kind of going into that, what can often be a really challenging industry at that age? What do you think that taught you and what challenges did you face and overcome through that?
I think with that, this is possibly partly, I never thought of this before, but now you said it, I think this could be where some of this anything's possible comes from, because a lot of people, when they want to, or children that are inspired by something and want to go into something, I don't know, learn to be an ice dancer or like, I don't know, something like that. They'll think, right, well, where do I go? I need to get lessons. I need to learn how. And in the performing world, as you know, like usually it entails auditions, and auditions where somebody then has to select you and say yes, and you're chosen and so on. I did do an audition once at the theatre, and they really wanted me, but I was so shy and quiet and I just didn't project enough. They didn't give anyone a second chance. They even gave me a second chance, and I blew it because I was too shy. I don't remember any other auditions though, ever. And I think this may be a thing. So my dad was in the entertainment industry, and through him and where he worked and so on, we living in the south of England, myself and my brother were selected all the time as TV extras for things, not through auditioning, but by default because we had the connection. So the work would come to the agency, my dad would put us on the job, and we would get that work. So that was sort of handed to us on a plate, as it were, but it was extra work. So they were happy, like any kid could have done it. We just happened to be there and and do that. So stepping out of school now and again to go and be on film sets, and I loved all the Victorian stuff and dressing up and meeting like all kinds of people who are incredibly famous, but as a kid I just took it as at face value. So I think that doing that kind of thing without actually having to choose it, train for it, work for it, be selected for it, there must have been something in that. And then at school, people would make a big fuss about it, even though it was normal to us. But I do remember one year, one teacher wanting to play it was a Ross Abbott show sketch to my whole class of year six. So you're a bit more self-conscious by then. And some of the boys were mocking my brother's outfit, which he wasn't impressed about when he heard. But it was, it was different. It wasn't just what everybody does. It was different. It stood out from the norm. And so I must have, surely, I was doing that kind of work since I was about probably four. So I must have known or seen that you can do things that not everybody does. You can, I do think that that has got a place in this. Um, yeah, and because therefore it wasn't that normal path in performing of train and get accepted. I just sort of took that approach with everything. So when it came to the Girls Aloud tribute act, I was just watching them on TV and thought, that's amazing. I want to do that. Let's create that show. So we just created a tribute version of that show and then went touring with it. And it was just brilliant. Like, why not?
I love that. And most people would just go, well, I wouldn't know where to start, so I'm not. And the fact that
Mm,
that having that less, I guess, less barriers to resistance of it being easy and something that you could walk into and it was normal for you, that just shows that actually anything is possible. It's really interesting because I was definitely in the classical world. It's very, very competitive, very limited spots.
mm,
I went through a lot of auditions. I also succeeded at a lot of auditions and then got revoked after being succeeded. So there were really interesting experiences. And
mm,
my belief growing up was always that, and I was told this more than one time, that I'd have to work twice as hard as everybody else to succeed, which is, it's really interesting hearing it from your perspective, because that's exactly what you trying to get away from in what you coach and what you teach now with people. And we were just having a
mm,
quick conversation before we started recording about how interesting people are. Like, I'm
mhm,
fascinated by people. I got so interested in people's behavior when I owned the cafe. And
mm,
I often say I used to watch people, but not in like the creepy way. But I just found people who were in what they did, like what they read, how they behaved, their mannerisms, all of that stuff. It was just so interesting, and you can learn so much. I really love to hear from you what it is about people that makes you so interested in them.
Oh, I think it's just, I think with people are all unique. People are different, right? We've all got, nobody goes through life with the exact same experiences and story. You can get uncanny similarities. I'm sure you've met somebody where you go, oh my goodness, that, like we have so much in common, have had so many similar life experiences, but nobody is the same. And even within that, you've got then personality, preferences, values, tastes. Like there's just so much about people that's unique. And what I love about your conversations and this is it's yes, business, but business to a certain extent is quite samey. The thing that makes the businesses different are the people. And you and I are mostly connected to founder-led type businesses. So people who have either, created it from nothing or certainly turned it into something with lots of vision, imagination, and creativity. And I think that fascinates me in itself. Just the fact that we have an idea, or a gift that we feel, or just something about us that we feel really passionately about putting into the world. Like lots of people don't have that. One of my very good friends is somebody who's like, no, I'm good with my job that pays me, and she has a brilliant life, like social life, and amazing, but just doesn't have that need to go and put something like else into the world. Um, when we're connected to a lot of people that do, and just getting under the skin of that, I find that really, really fascinating. I'm definitely one for deep. I like deep conversations. I like my thoughts to be challenged. I like sharing mine, and I like hearing others, and just like, yeah, it's interesting. Otherwise, I'd get bored.
Yeah, actually, that's, understanding other people's interests and their behaviors and all that sort of thing. What do you think? Obviously, we're going through a really changeable time in the online space with the introduction of AI. That's not been
Yeah.
new, it's been coming in for a while.
Mm.
But I certainly see from a content point of view and seeing what goes on socials, which I do spend a lot of time on, obviously, as part of my job and in my life, because I love social media. Um, but I increasingly see less people behind the business, hence this podcast. How do you think that is actually really affecting people from a high performance level?
What the people who, the actual business people.
Yeah, the kind of
Yeah.
the introduction of AI, because it can
Yeah.
be so good in so many ways,
Yeah.
but yet what I think it's doing to a lot of people is disconnecting them from potential clients, people that they can resonate with, and
Hmm.
those connections are being limited in a way.
I think so. I'm caveat that I am an optimist, so that is how I'm wired. But I actually, so I do try. I find the good in. I will find the good in everything, right? But the good I see in this is it's going to. Well, one thing is it will separate the men from the boys. There will be businesses that do fall by the wayside because they're flimsy. They've been riding on a bit of a gravy train from maybe the pandemic years, and just there's certain things that would have worked with relative ease that won't now. So those that stick around are going to need to work harder. But I also think that because everything is so cyclical, I just see, I was in business in the early 2000s. And I think, like, right back from when I was 18, even, so 99 to like early 2000s, um, and just knowing how business was then, remembering the days pre-Facebook. And then one of the businesses that I still have now was Facebook, but nothing else. There were no other platforms. Just knowing how things worked and how we worked then, like how I worked to get seen and known and heard. I've never let go of that. I definitely saw it was different for a number of years, but I feel like it's just sort of, it's reverting back in some ways, but with an added layer. It will never go back completely because we have the technology. So I think what we're heading into is a time where people who like prefer to be faceless won't be able to be. They may then do AI twin and clone themselves and present themselves in that way. If that helps them get seen, great, fine. But it won't be enough. You'll still need to get either in person, in the real world, in the flesh, in the proximity of real people, and or things like we're doing now. So I know people will listen to this on an audio, but getting it's really us, real conversations. Um, Events, retreats, and I think also lives. So with you'll know with content, but live, real face to cam, the stuff that you can't copy, that only a human can do with all the mistakes and all the realness. Um, and that's what's gonna you'll need to pepper that in. So I say and not or. Like I don't think we need to be boycotting the advancements that we're seeing with technology. I think we just need to select what works for us, use it to our advantage, but make sure we're peppering in real as well. And but that does take hard work. It's all work. Um, I think if we go completely old school and try to stay entirely real world, we might struggle because we may be missed over. But if we can balance it and have some of both, I think that's where we're heading.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's a really important conversation to keep having because
Mm.
it's not going away. We have to embrace it. It's like the world of social media. That changed how everything was done then. And it
Yeah,
actually has influenced so much of the last 20 years in business and in life that I think
yeah,
you can't avoid these things. But I do love the fact that there is some retro things coming back into the world. You know, I always
definitely.
say we grow up in the era where we actually had to wind down a window in the car. That's the kind of
Yes.
stuff you can't get away from. Instead, now it's like, where do I find the button? I don't know how to do this. I've got to do some sort of voice activation. Um, I want to actually just kind of lead on from that to talk a bit about high performance
Yeah.
because this is a word that gets bounded around quite a lot, particularly in the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah.
And you've openly talked about the fact that you're ADHD. So high performance does naturally get associated, particularly with women who are ADHD.
Mm,
But I also know, as someone who is in the same ilk, that high performance often comes at a cost of very low performance. So
hmm.
how do you balance that? Because you must kind of feel that some days you can run at 300 miles an hour, and other days it's like, I'm going to just have to lie down in a dark room and not come out again for about a month.
I should do that sometimes. I don't. I should. I get to
Yeah,
the end of the day and go, there was a day where I should, that's the day where I should have just taken the day off. But I try and push through, and that's not always the best idea. But yeah, and I think also it's not always just the ADHD element. I think that hormones, I mean, perimenopause can really exacerbate ADHD. Estrogen decline impacts ADHD massively. Like there are so many, and there's new information coming out all the time about this. So there are so many factors. So I've definitely noticed it more in my 40s than I ever used to. Well, that's why I didn't even know before I was 40 that I was wired that way. And I also think that there's a definite like entrepreneurial driven women and ADHD traits are almost one and the same. So I've still, even as somebody who's diagnosed and had in-depth conversations with a psychiatrist going, but how do you know for sure? Like, unless you do a brain scan, like I know, but how do you know? And there are similar traits there. So I think it's a sliding scale, right? And I just think you've got to embrace the assets of that and but know that they come at a cost. So I call it the high performance paradox. And it's that paradox of you are a high achiever, you are capable, you can hold a lot at once. You can hyper focus and go, right, this is happening. I'm getting all this done in a day, and someone else would dip in and out and take a week or so or whatever. I think that you have those strengths, but because you have them, you're prone to carry too much. And then what happens is we take on too many things. We end up overwhelmed or freezing up. That's what I do if I get too overwhelmed. I freeze, and I'm like, uh, where do I start? Literally, where do I start? Um, so I think it's being aware of that, and that's the key. I wouldn't say for one second I have it all figured out or balanced. I don't think there's such a thing. I think it's a continual roller coaster, but just being aware, knowing, and being able to go, take a break, go for a walk, breathe, and when you come back, that that thing that's feeling really like hard right now, it will click. And sometimes the best thing that you can do is just step away. Step
yeah.
away.
Are you good at stepping away?
Better now than I used to be. So I used to um, just keep going, keep grinding something out. And now I'm much better at going stop because I've learned that actually by stopping you end up getting more done eventually. It's like the whole old adage of like the Buddhist monk who meditates for 8 hours a day achieves more, that kind of thing. I used to think going out for a walk would be not the best use of my time. I've got too much to do, or anything, literally anything is not the best use of my time. And I've now learned that that's absolutely not the case. And some of the clearest thinking comes when you step away and you think you get so caught up in must get this done and cover all these things actually. Yeah, it's okay to lean into the superpower sometimes. Like I was hyper focused on something yesterday evening, and I knew it was easier to do that job. It was like a four-part thing, and it was easier to do that in one sitting than it was to do one and go, I'll do another one tomorrow. That you break flow. So I knew that I'd actually achieve more by just keep going, get this finished, but then it's done, and then I'll replenish myself like in a. So I think yeah, awareness is the secret for sure.
Yeah. I'd really love to know your thoughts on this because I get like that. I get into flow and then I get caught up on something like I'll get distracted and I'll sit in my computer until 10 o'clock at night and I'll get some really great work done. I am totally
Yeah.
happy with that. But there's this part of me that feels guilty that I haven't actually addressed the other people in my life in that day. So how do you balance that kind of feeling of I need to serve other people versus this is what I need to do for my business right now?
That's difficult. I think it's about knowing who and how the people around you operate and communication. So like making sure I don't know about you, but I know that I'll be the one who will be more worried about that than them. So I'll be beating myself up for not giving anyone else enough attention, but they're actually like, it's fine. I'm not bothered. You carry on. But it is about it is communication and knowing. And I do, so as we're recording this, we're in a school holiday, although I think my kids are always in a school holiday. It seems to be one every 5 minutes. um I've always, since they were tiny, my business has always worked around them. I set it up that way and I really treasure that. And I know that it won't be long now before that's all done and they won't care. But I like that, and I'm probably more precious about that than them. I'm precious about doing the school runs and being around. Now, I will sprinkle in work and I will find time and I'll fit things in, but then I'll do things like, okay, I'm going to keep that day clear and we're going to go and do this thing together. And we'll have a load of fun. Last week we went to a theme park and I've taken my daughter shopping in London, like, and one day this week, but I'll ring fence some time, especially, and then I'm all in. But then other days I'm going, right, I've got some work to do today. Can I get a lift somewhere? Yeah, I can take you at that point. I'll pause, I'll do that. Then I'm like, right, I need to get back because I've got some more work I need to do. So I actually see that I feel really grateful that I get to work that way rather than feel like it's a burden. Um, but then even pre-children, I do remember being in Palm Springs with my husband, and a previous business that we owned was just really taking off, and we had a client that was rolling out business all like in multi-venues, and we were like, this is amazing, but there was a lot happening. And it was an agency model, and we had people working for us, and I remember lying in my on my sun lounger in like 90-degree heat, and I was going, "Oh, it's so annoying. This person's saying they can't be at this place, and I've got to sort this out." And I was getting frustrated. And he went, "And you're doing that from a sun lounger in this beautiful setting." And I just went, "Oh yeah, that's a really good point." And ever since then, literally, and here I am remembering it now because ever since then, I've always seen it that way, like rather than it being a pain. It's like, oh, I get to do that. That's great. So, in answer to your question, how do you manage the other people? Like, I think it is about talking to them, seeing what they need and what they expect, and then factoring in that time as well so that you can go, it's okay. I can go all in here, then I'm going to go all in with them.
I love that. I'm going to take a complete sideways tangent just before we come to wrapping up. I want to know what is your absolute favorite song to sing?
Ooh, oh my gosh, I should just have one like that. Mm, there's a few.
Go on, give
Favorite
me
to
your dream
sing.
list. Give me
Just
your car playlist that you would sing along to.
I could give you a top few. Doesn't mean I'm good at them. So, like for instance, one song I really can't not love "Let It Go" from Frozen because it's just so like empowering. And I also so I've got a little soft spot for the song "Never Enough" from The Greatest Showman. I
Mm,
had I was with some business women in LA, where were we? We were at Malibu, in Malibu, and one of them's a voice coach, and I was talking about that I can't sing those notes. There's no way I can do that. Anyway, she got me doing it, and everyone, including me, we were all crying like in the room. And so I can, but I not off the cuff. So I love music like that. I love music that moves me to emotion. That's my favorite kind of music. Music that just really hits me in a really, yeah. But I also have a real soft spot for Cyndi Lauper time after time because it's my first karaoke song that I used to sing and reminds me of my dad because he used to joke around and go, "How Lucy's singing time after time after time after time." So we had a little joke with that. So that's like a little, I have a soft spot for that.
Oh, yes. I mean,
Anything, I love it. Cheesy
uh,
stuff.
yeah, I love a bit of cheese. You can't beat that. If you were speaking to one of your ideal clients or my listeners who are probably listening in, what would be your number one takeaway to balance or how to make your business work for your life? Because often we
Mm.
look at it the other way around, don't we? We look at business first, then life second. It should be the other way around, but we don't do that. What would be your one piece of advice for people?
If you had to put it down to one thing, I would say it's know what you want. Like get clear on what you want because we usually go into business knowing what we want the business to do. Like, oh, I want to change the world with this thing and I want, and we have the business goal, but we don't think about how that supports our life. And so then what ends up happening is it consumes us. And so in the climb to achieve that, we're working all the hours, we're burning out, we're disconnected from our loved ones, all these things. And suddenly you go, wait, now I've made it and this is all wonderful, but I'm jet setting off here, there, and everywhere. And actually, this isn't the life I wanted. Like this, what have I built? So I think it's check in with yourself regularly with what do I actually want? And I know you and I know people who have scaled to very big businesses and then stopped, looked around and gone, don't want this actually. I was happier when it was smaller and it gave me enough and know what is enough. Know what enough is. What's your enough? Not someone else's, not some big fancy number, just what's enough.
Yeah, amazing advice. Lucy, it's been an absolute joy. Where can people find you?
The best place to find me is Instagram. I am Lucy Shrimpton, all one word. It's me on there. I run my own account, so yeah, message me. I love a chat or a voice note, and I'm really easy to. I'm very approachable, and I look yeah. So just connect with me on there, and I'd love to talk to people.
Yeah, and I can highly recommend Lucy's account. She shares some really valuable insights to all of these things. So definitely do go follow her. Thank you so much, Lucy, for this conversation. And I'll be back again next week with another episode of Stories That Sell.